What's up, my comic comrades? Last night I saw the Birds of Prey movie, so today I'm here to give you my spoiler-free thoughts. First up, I'm going to talk about all the things I did like, and then after that, I'm going to talk about the stuff I didn't like. And I gotta be honest, there's quite a bit. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start talking about the positive. First off, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I really enjoyed her. I liked her in Suicide Squad, and I liked her a lot more in this, as it was her movie, so she had a lot more to do, and she could explore the character more. I think she found that delicate balance of being an absolute psychopath, but still being very likable and zany and cutesy and bubbly all at the same time. The first quarter of this film is my favorite part of the film, and that's mainly because it's pretty much just a pure Harley Quinn film up until that point. Also, from a comic book perspective, this version of Harley Quinn is definitely that New 52/Rebirth era of Harley Quinn, which Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner kicked off. So much so, we even see her beaver in this film, and no, that is not a sexual innuendo. She quite literally has a stuffed beaver in the film. Somehow, I feel like saying stuffed beaver made that worse. You guys know what I'm talking about. We even get one of her pet hyenas in this film, which, as longtime Harley Quinn fans know, that was introduced to us in Batman the Animated Series. Of course, in the animated series, she has two. Here she has one. It's also named Bruce. Not the same name from the comics, but still cool nonetheless. In short, I just really enjoyed Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Again, I think she did a great job. But now let's talk about Black Mask. Ewan McGregor as Black Mask, I thought was really good. It's definitely a different take from the comics and cartoons we've seen, but I liked it. He's like that crazy, eccentric, like he's happy and really kind of ecstatic one second, but then turns really dark the next. There's two scenes in particular that I thought were really dark. One worse than the other, but two standouts for sure. Overall, I really enjoyed his performance. Again, in the comics and cartoons, he's more of a straightforward mobster. But here, I really like what he did, having a turn from being this like flamboyant, almost fun guy to then turning to really, really dark. I also really dug the soundtrack and score for this film. It actually kind of reminded me of the Suicide Squad soundtrack, and say what you will about that movie, I love the soundtrack, and this one has one similar, so I love this one too. Also, the color palette for this film, I personally love really vibrant colors, so of course I really enjoyed the color palette for this film, just down to even like the stylization of certain cities or the carnival. There's a carnival scene towards the end of the film. I thought that looked really, really cool. It almost looked like they put the actors in an animation setting, but I think it worked because it's so stylized. It kind of reminded me of the Arkham games. There was also a lot of funny moments in the film. There was one scene in particular that involves a tattoo on a guy's face that I thought was hilarious and very much felt like something Paul Dini or Bruce Timm would do. Then we have the action scenes in this movie. Everyone's talking about the fight scenes and the action. There is two fight scenes that I did really enjoy. One with Harley using a beanbag launching gun, or whatever you call it, I'm not sure of the name, and then where she's using her baseball bat. That one's actually my favorite. But unfortunately, that's gonna transition me into the bad because those are the only two fight scenes I enjoyed. I know a lot of people are comparing the fight scenes in this movie to John Wick, and I don't know how one would do that. I don't like tearing things apart, but there is no way any fight scene in this movie, even the ones I liked, could be compared to the John Wick films. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. This is mine. Now let me tell you why I personally think that. I just think most of the fight scenes in this movie seem very choreographed. Obviously all fight scenes in movies are choreographed, but you're not supposed to be able to tell. And I just think the way it was shot and the pacing of it didn't lend to suspending that disbelief. But now you guys might be saying, Arris, you still haven't talked about all the other characters that are in the film. And there's a reason for that. Because characters like Huntress, Black Canary, Cassandra Cain, Renee Montoya, I wasn't that big of a fan of. Now, I'm all down for changing characters for live action and movies and stuff. Sure, you have to keep like the core roots and foundation, but I'm down for them changing things here and there to fit their narrative, as long as it's for the better. And I just didn't feel that several of the changes for these characters were for the better. Let's start with Renee Montoya. Now, I grew up with this character, especially from Batman the Animated Series, and then even in the comics. She becomes the second question. But for me, it wasn't necessarily that she was horrible or bad, it's just she didn't pop off the screen, like very forgettable. Then we have Huntress. Although her backstory in the movie was very similar to that of her in the comics, I just think it was a miscast, as I didn't believe her. Like, she's angry and pissed all the time, but when people say that, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm not angry. It just didn't work for me. Moving along, we have Black Canary. Now, this isn't Black Canary's first time in live action. We've seen her in Smallville, we've seen her in the CW Arrow show, and so on and so forth. But as you know, once you put a character in a blockbuster movie, that's really when all eyes are on the character. And I just think she was a completely missed opportunity. Like, they barely utilized her at all. I mean, her claim to fame is her canary cry. That's part of her freaking lineage. Her mother was the first Black Canary. And I don't want to get in too deep because I don't want to spoil anything, but there was just major wasted opportunities with her. It was almost like, why put her in the film? Also, she didn't have a costume at all. She was basically in just street clothes the entire time, and I get it. They do that from time to time in live action movies. They've done it in the MCU, they've done it in the DCEU before, but there was like not even like the slightest semblance of her costume from the comics. No leather jacket, no fishnets, nothing. But all this leads me to easily my biggest gripe about this movie, and that is Cassandra Cain. Now, Cassandra Cain in the comics is one of the best assassins in the DC universe. Her mother, Lady Shiva, is the best assassin in the DC universe, and her father, David Cain, is one of the world's greatest assassins in the DC universe. Yet somehow, in this movie, Cassandra Cain doesn't even know how to throw a punch. Literally in the movie, they reduced Cassandra Cain, one of the most badass female characters in the DC universe, to a foster kid and a pickpocket. It's really weird to me, considering this women's empowerment movement that's going on right now in movies and TV and all of media, that they took a powerful female character from the comics and just made her a common thief. Again, she's the second Batgirl in the comics. She eventually becomes Black Bat and then gives the mantle of Batgirl to Stephanie Brown and then becomes Orphan. She's a beast. Why? Why would you make her a pickpocket? Cassandra Cain in the movie literally could have been anyone. Like, the only reason she's Cassandra Cain is because they named her Cassandra Cain. She has no traits of Cassandra Cain from the comics. They literally could have called her Michelle and it would have worked just the same. So that is by far my biggest gripe for this film. You guys know I'm a massive Batman fan, meaning I love the entire Bat family. She's an awesome member of the Bat family, and they just did her dirty. With that said, to be fair, this complaint is coming from a long-time comic book fan and Batman fan. Most people aren't even gonna know who Cassandra Cain is, so whatever. But again, if they're not gonna know who Cassandra Cain is, just name her something else. Sorry, the fanboy's coming out. I gotta tame it. But with that said, that's as far as I can go without getting into any spoiler territory, so I'm gonna save the rest to talk about that with Tim on next week's podcast. All in all, this movie is very polarizing for me. I did enjoy all the Harley Quinn bits and Black Mask, but again, I didn't like what they did with the Birds of Prey, which is another thing. This is very much a Harley Quinn movie. Like, the title should have been flipped. It should have been Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, not the Birds of Prey and then Harley Quinn. But again, I will save the rant for the podcast where me and Tim will be talking about all the spoilers. So I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.